we're back. We're going to finish this thing called The Brief History of Communication Models. I've also turned off the meditation music because it was lulling me to sleep. So imagine you're the student in 2220, okay? And this shouldn't be too much of a stretch for you. And I ask you, how does communication work? Like whenever you're communicating with the audience members in your class, how does it work? And you might say to me something like, Adam, first I have some information, and then I share it with them through the air, and then they receive it through their ears, and then they process that information. And that's how speeches work. And I would say, congratulations, you are 1950s scientist man. Also, you're wrong, but really you're 1950s scientist man, because for a long time, that's exactly how we thought that communication worked. We said, hey, there's a sender that has the information. They transmit it with their like perfectly white, straight teeth through the air to somebody's ear, and then that person receives it. Sometimes there's noise, which is generated by a weird generator thing up here in jellyfish tentacles. But in this case, they actually meant like physical noise, right? Like, so maybe you're in the back of the room, or maybe there's a generator running outside and they can't hear you. And like, you might look at this and say, wow, this is really overly simplified and kind of dumb. And how could anybody believe that communication works like this? But you would, you would be right. But also it really happened for a long time. I went to PR school, and they actually talked about in the, 50s, 60s, and 70s to a certain extent, they sent communication from businesses like this too. They're like, well, first we'll, craft it to where it's clear, and then we'll broadcast it, and then people will automatically get it, and receive it. But if you've ever been misunderstood, if you've ever shared thing perfectly clear and then had somebody make a different meaning of it, you know that there are other factors to consider here, right? And so that's what we came up with, sort of late 90s, early 2000s. We came up with this other model. By the way, I hope you enjoy my iPhone bootleg experience here, wherein I took a picture from the book and put it on the screen. And so what we know now is that there are a lot of other factors. And that's kind of what the rest of this lesson is about, is to walk you through like what these factors look like. So there's still a sender, there's still a receiver, and there's still a message, right? But now we sort of look at it as that this is a two-way street. That there's messages being sent, sort of simultaneously, because I'm talking to the audience, but also I'm getting feedback from the audience at the same time, right? Like when you think about your experience in the 2220 lab. We also think about our relationship, to the sender and receiver is, has a factor in there. I'm going to talk differently to you depending on my relationship with you. And we also take into account that your field of experience has had some bearing on it, right? So for example, if you are, you grew up hunting with your grandfather, and that's a very, happy, fond memory that you have, and that's your field of experience, and you share this message about how you used to go hunting as a young child, and the person over here on the sender, or the receiver side, is, like a PETA member or something. Like they have a vastly different field of experience and set of values, and they're going to receive that message that you say, I went hunting with my grandfather a couple times, in a very different way, and they're going to make different meaning of it, right? So that's the thing that we need to take into account. So like, what is the person that we're talking to? Like, what is their experience? So some other things to consider is that all of this takes place within a culture. Culture has an immense effect on us, and if you don't know it, you should study it because it's like really fascinating. And so we've got societal forces pushing in, things that dictate your power distance from the people that are above you. If that doesn't make any sense, we're going to cover it in just a minute. And then individual forces pushing out, right? So things like your age and where you're from, okay? So let's walk through this, and I'm just going to stop us here because I know that you guys enjoy short videos, at least according to the research, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about like these things and what they mean, and give you examples. Okay, I'm going to play the music. So soothing.